What state transition are you entering? Most people understand morning coffee not only as a beverage, not only as taste, not only as caffeine. For many people, coffee marks a transition, sleep into wakefulness. The cup arrives at the edge between one state and another. The person is no longer fully asleep, but not yet fully ready. There is residue from the night. There is inertia in the body. There is a day waiting to begin. Coffee helps mark the crossing. It tells the system, the day is beginning. This is not only chemistry, it is ritual. It is repetition. It is timing. It is smell. It is temperature. It is the cup in the hand. It is the first sip. It is the room becoming morning. This is why coffee is so powerful in modern life. It does not merely exist as a drink. It owns one of the most familiar state transitions in the Western world: sleep into wakefulness. This is not an argument against coffee. It is an argument from coffee. Coffee proves something important about human beings. People do not simply consume inputs. They use inputs to move between states. Most people do not need to be taught that morning coffee means something. They already know. The cup has a role. The timing has a role. The repeated use has a role. The sensory cues have a role. A person may say they're drinking coffee because they like the taste, or because they want the caffeine. Both may be true. But underneath the explanation, something larger is happening. Coffee helps mark the beginning of the day. It helps the person cross from sleep, residue, and inertia into readiness. The transition is familiar enough that most people do not need to name it. They simply live inside it. That is how strong state transition rituals often work. They become so familiar that they disappear into the background. But the structure is still there. Input. State transition. New mode of action. The input does not own the entire transition. Coffee does not create the day by itself, but it participates in the crossing. It marks a shift. It helps the system recognize that one mode is ending and another is beginning. Coffee owns one of the most powerful transitions in modern life: sleep into wakefulness. But the day contains many other transitions. Some are obvious: waking into work, meeting into writing, conversation into decision, preparation into execution, stress into recovery. Some are more subtle: scattered attention into deep work, consumption into commitment, interruption into return, noise into clarity, ordinary wakefulness into meaningful effort. These transitions are already happening. The problem is that most of them are unnamed. Because they are unnamed, they are often unsupported. A person finishes a meeting and immediately tries to write, but the state of the meeting is still active. A person leaves a stressful conversation and immediately tries to make a decision, but the residue of the conversation is still present. A person moves from fragmented input into deep work, but the system is still configured for switching. A person opens a task and expects focus to appear, but the state transition has not been marked. The work begins on the outside before the system has entered it on the inside. This is why the transition matters. An occasion is the visible situation. A transition is the state movement underneath it. An occasion might be morning coffee. The transition is sleep into wakefulness. An occasion might be afternoon drink. The transition might be fragmentation into meaningful work. An occasion might be after work. The transition might be performance into recovery. An occasion might be before writing. The transition might be scattered attention into inward engagement. The occasion is what people can see. The transition is what the system is trying to enter. This distinction matters because products are usually organized around occasions. Morning, afternoon, workout, commute, meeting, break, desk, travel. Occasions are useful, but they are incomplete. The deeper question is not only where the person is, or what time it is. The deeper question is what state the person is trying to enter. That is where a new category begins. A category begins when people ask a different question before choosing the same input. Before, the question may have been, what drink do I want? What sounds good? What has caffeine? What am I in the mood for? Those questions are familiar. They organize existing categories. But state engineering begins with a different question. What state transition am I entering? This question changes the meaning of the input. The drink is no longer only a beverage. The object is no longer only an object. The room is no longer only a room. The first action is no longer only an action. Each can become part of a transition. The question does not make the input magical. It makes the transition visible. That is the category shift. Not, what do I want to consume? But, what state transition am I entering? Once the transition is named, the input can be chosen more deliberately. If the transition is sleep into wakefulness, the input may need to support readiness. If the transition is fragmentation into meaningful work, the input may need to reduce competing signals. If the transition is meeting into writing, the input may need to help attention return inward. If the transition is stress into recovery, the input may need to reduce carryover. If the transition is preparation into execution, the input may need to mark commitment. This is not productivity advice. It is not a hack. It is not mood control. It is not forced performance. It is simply more precise interpretation. People are already moving between states. The question is whether those transitions are named, supported, and protected. When a transition remains unnamed, the person may reach for an input by habit alone. When a transition is named, the input can be understood differently, not as a solution by itself, not as a guarantee, but as one signal within a broader state transition ecology. Inputs are not neutral. They participate in the conditions from which state emerges. A sound can mark a beginning. A closed door can mark protection. A cleared surface can reduce visual noise. A notebook can signal seriousness. A chair can become associated with a mode of work. A room can tell the system what kind of attention is being asked for. A cup can mark a transition. A first sip can become a threshold. None of these things force a state. They do not create focus by themselves. They do not replace effort, skill, judgment, or meaning. But they can participate in preparation. They can help the system recognize this is a different kind of moment. That recognition matters because state does not shift only through command. State shifts through signals, repetition, environment, meaning, and timing. The goal is not control. The goal is preparation. A threshold can be simple. Pause, prepare, commit, protect, begin. The sequence does not create focus by force. It marks the transition. Pause interrupts accidental momentum. Prepare arranges the conditions. Commit gives the work a clear object. Protect reduces competing signals. Begin brings the system into contact with the task. These are not productivity steps. They are transition architecture. The point is not to manufacture performance. The point is to help the system cross from one mode into another. This is why the question before the input matters. Before choosing the drink, the room, the sound, the object, or the first action, the deeper question is, what state transition am I entering? EL1X1R begins with the state transition, not the beverage. A future EL1X1R expression may support a specific transition into meaningful work. But the product is not the category. The question is the beginning of the category. Ingredients are only one layer of a broader state transition ecology. Taste is input. Temperature is input. Sound is input. Texture is input. Container is input. Language is input. Timing is input. Context is input. A future state support object would matter only if it helps protect the transition into meaningful work. It would not give people focus. It would not force a state. It would not own the transition. It would support the transition. The human transition remains the hero. People already move between states every day. Sleep into wakefulness. Fragmentation into work. Conversation into decision. Stress into recovery. Consumption into commitment. Preparation into execution. Most transitions are already happening. They are simply unnamed and unsupported. Coffee taught modern life that a beverage can mark a transition. But coffee owns only one familiar transition: sleep into wakefulness. Life contains many other transitions that deserve to be named. The next time someone reaches for an input, the deeper question may not be what they want to consume. It may be, what state transition am I entering?